My name is Dave Eberly, and I am the Church and Community Relations Manager here at Lutheran Family and Children's Services of Missouri. And I am joined today by Michelle Davis. She is one of LFCS's own. She's a fantastic worker here in our foster care system, and she has agreed to join us to talk a little bit about April being Child Abuse and Neglect Prevention Month, and to kind of go over some information about what that actually is, what the foster care program specifically is designed to do to help with that, and more importantly, what you can do at home watching this, what kind of prevention or awareness options are available. With that being said, Michelle, thank you so much. I appreciate you taking some time to join me here. So I want to, sorry, I need to talk over you there. Again, starting off the bat, April is Child Abuse and Neglect Prevention Month. From your experience working in the foster care program, what are some of those common situations in which kids can experience abuse and neglect?
So, like you said, April's Child Abuse and Prevention Month. Just a little background on how that started. It was started by a grandparent years ago because her grandchild was severely abused. And so if you see the blue ribbon say "Go Blue," that's where that kind of came from, because the bruises are black and blue. And so that's kind of where that campaign started. And you see something, say something. So a lot of our kids who come into foster care, a lot of our neighbors and a lot of our teachers report the abuse, most commonly for our younger kids, our babies, some type of drug abuse. Most of our babies who come into care are born drug exposed. It's been different waves. So when the fentanyl was popular, that was a lot of our kids came into care because of fentanyl. A lot of our kids used to come into care for heroin, meth. So whatever the popular drug is at the time, it seems like that's when most of the babies come into care. Some of our older youth, it's usually physical abuse, sexual abuse. Some of our kids come into care and some people don't realize because of educational neglect, like they are not going to school or they're not attending school properly, or medical neglect when our parents aren't taking them to the doctor for the ailments that they have. So it varies, a wide range from birth to 18. The kids come into care for various reasons.
So I know not going to be able to recite specific statistics, but roughly how common is this in any given neighborhood or even across the state that someone might experience some of these symptoms that you were talking about?
It is more common than you think. It has no, I would say most of our families are of lower socioeconomic status, but that doesn't always ring true. We have clients who are very prominent nurses and doctors, and they become addicted, and the kids are being not taken care of. And so, like I said, our neighbors who are watching the kids and notice something's off, or the kids go to school and they have conversations with their teachers and their counselors. So it's more common than you think.
What are some of the goals that you work with these kids to try to achieve or work towards as they're working in our foster care program?
I would say just working with the family in general, we have to do it as a holistic approach, because most of the families we work with they do love their kids. They do, I tell people when I talk to people that they didn't decide to get up that day and abuse something. Something happened. There was a cycle and something went wrong. So for 3 days, 5 days out the week, they were, a strength-based approach. Like something was going right, but something went awry. And so our overall goal is to try to alleviate the situation that brought that kid into care, change the home environment, whether it's through counseling, whether it's through housing resources, whether it's through drug rehab, and get that child back home with their parents. Unfortunately, sometimes that doesn't always occur. And so we hope sometimes that relatives can get involved and become what we call kinship providers for our kids, and still work with that family to try to get that kid back home, but make sure the kid's in a safe and reliable stable placement. We do have foster parents who are not related to the kids, so we call them our just traditional foster parents. And if for whatever reason the kids cannot return to the home environment, we try to get guardianship with the relatives or sometimes adoption. Some of our older youth, we have older youth who what we call, they age out of the system so they can stay in the system until they're 21.
What are some of the common misconceptions that you perceive that you can maybe rectify or set the record straight a little bit about? No, this is what we're trying to do, or this is our ambition as we work in the system.
So a lot of perceptions is that we want to remove kids from the home, and we don't always. We do have programs through Children's Division that work with families before the kids are removed from the home. So even Lutheran has like a home visitation program where they try to provide parenting skills and budgeting skills and different things that a family may need to maintain kids staying in the home. If there's all of our kids and parents who have issues with drugs don't necessarily come into foster care. So we have programs like intensive in-home services where they have a worker who comes 2 or 3 times a week and try to get parents into rehab and counseling and try to get those services on the front end so that they are not coming into the foster care system. So there's always a misperception that we only want to take children and place them in foster homes and get them adopted, but that's not always true. We strive to keep families intact because it does show that children are more successful with their family of origin, and the family of origin is the expert on that child. And so we try to maintain that. We try to do services on the front end at times before they come into foster care, but then sometimes there's just situations that we cannot prevent and they're safer in foster care.
Have you seen anything with COVID and especially being the lockdown that has compounded any of that abuse and neglect that we're seeing, or any figures on those ends that you can share with everybody here?
We were very fearful when COVID started. A lot of our child abuse and neglect hotlines like drastically went down 50%. And that is because a lot of our reports come from kids being at school, kids being in public, kids being where other people can see that there is some abuse and neglect going on. Some of our youth, some of our kids, they don't get breakfast and lunch unless they're at school. So that was another concern that we had, were families going to be able to feed the kids while being at home? And so by doing visits virtually, you can't get a sense of what the environment is like. Is this kid struggling in this environment? So that was a very hard challenge of trying to gauge whether or not is everything okay, because we go out to the homes and we want to make sure when we're in the homes that things are still safe, there's no safety issues, that they have simple things like running water, or is their toilet still working, just so these kids are in a safe and stable environment. And so that was a struggle with COVID, trying to gauge all of that. And with the kids being home from school, just the mental health factor of the kids. Some of our kids did not do well without that socialization or that interaction with other kids their own age or with other teachers and people they were used to seeing every day.
What can I do as somebody in the community to really help either promote awareness or to help with the prevention point to make sure that kids don't experience these things that their abuse and neglect is common for?
So you will hear people say, if you see something, say something. I always err on the side of make the call to Children's Division and let them figure it out. So if you think a child is being physically abused, call and let us figure it out. If you think a child is being sexually abused, call and let us figure it out. Because I would hate for something to be going on and nobody calls versus it's just a call and it really wasn't what it looked like. And so we're mandated reporters. So I'm always basically, whatever I see, I have to report. Just the general public, when you see kids walking by themselves, like it's, a 3-year-old, why is this 3-year-old out by themselves? So things that you see that don't look right may be cause for concern. And then just in general, if you are not wanting to be a foster parent, like we have a great need for people to be foster parents, and most of our foster parents, they go into it and they're like, oh, I don't know what I can do, or they get into it and they stay for years and years. Some of them adopt, but just to be a safe, stable placement for a child who comes into foster care. A lot of people misconcept the kinship that you have to be blood related. So if you have a neighbor child who comes into care, like that is a great support for that child, because that child sometimes has to leave out of their school district. So if they were with someone in the neighborhood, maybe they could stay in their school district. That child, may have lived in St. Louis City and now they're in St. Peter's because that's where the foster home was available. Well, now they've have to switch schools. So different things like that. And then just being aware, if you don't want to be a foster parent, or if you don't want to be, we have what we call respite providers. So sometimes our foster parents need a break, like our parents in general. So we have respite providers who provide care just to give the foster parents a break. So that's something that the general public can do. And then there's all types of needs for some of our older youth. Some people donate clothes. Some people donate toiletries. We have a tote bag donation. And so like a lot of our kids move in trash bags, and that's something we try to stop. We want them to not feel like they are trash, because a lot of our kids, they've gone through enough already. And so we have people who donate suitcases. And so there's always ways you can help, and just call your local organization and see what the need is. Every need is different, just depending on the population they're working with.
Now, there's something that came up when we talk about, see something, say something, that I'd be curious to see if you could help clear up, is the uncertainty. What do we do if we're wrong? Like, are we going to condemn this person? Will they have a scarlet letter on their face? Just that whole sort of thing. Can you maybe walk us through what happens if there's a situation where, we call, see something, say something, and just kind of guide us through what happens after the call is made?
So after the call is made, so I would say, let me go back. During the call, the investigator on the other line, or the person on the other line, is going to ask you a series of questions. And so through those questions, they kind of determine, is this an emergency? Is there really something there? Or is that just something that is not what you think it is? And so it builds a paper trail, or I don't know how to put it, but if there is something going on and they continue to get calls about that family, they have a history with this family. But then when you do call, every call is not somebody comes out to the house. Like I said, they ask questions. They kind of try to figure out what's going on. Is there an area of concern? For instance, like kids being home alone. The statute in Missouri, there's no age for the kids to be home alone. Well, if I leave my 12-year-old alone, that's different than leaving the 4-year-old at home. And so in that situation, you could probably leave a 12-year-old at home for about an hour or so, but a 4-year-old, not so much. So they do have some questions that they walk through to kind of make sure if it is a bogus call, or if there is something that they need to go out and investigate. So every call will not necessarily result in somebody coming to investigate a situation.
And this goes without saying, but just to confirm for everybody, those calls are anonymous. It's never known to anybody going through where it's coming from or how it's delegated, correct?
So they do not tell you who called.
And what is the number that if somebody, is suspecting something or sees something strange, that they should reach out and call to?
So you can call your local police if it's a true dire emergency, but the child abuse and neglect hotline number is 1-800-392-3738.
Perfect. And we're going to tag that down here. You'll probably see it at the bottom when you watch the video. We'll have it also at the end too. So if you have a second, just put it in your phone, do real quick as a save, and you've got the name on there. It's just, if nothing else, if you're someone who's around kids, has kids, who's got that experience, it's just a safety net. It's another way to have just in case. So, any other closing thoughts or anything that you think would be important for anyone watching to see that we maybe haven't covered yet so far?
I would just say, with the kids about to being out of school for the summer, we get a lot of calls then. But just to be vigilant, neighbor kids are going through, just being a safe place for them. You don't necessarily have to make a hotline call. You can be that support system. If single mom next door is working, can you babysit a couple of hours? Or just watch. You don't necessarily have to babysit because they're old enough to be home, but just watch out for the kids, while they're at home and mom's at work or dad's at work, and they're trying to take care of themselves. But we all know kids sometimes think
they can drive you a little crazy,
but
just a little bit.
Right. So just be vigilant and supportive of whatever you can do. And then, summer's about to happen. So the kids will be out of school, and just keep an eye out of anything. And then like I said, if you think there's a reason to call and let them figure it out.
And it sounds like even just being an active member of your community, being involved in your neighbors, like caring for those, is an easy way of prevention, because you're looking out for each other.
It is.
Perfect. Well, thank you so much, Michelle. I really appreciate this. I think there's a ton of good information that people can take from this. And one thing I will say that we didn't quite cover that I want to touch in here at the end is, we mentioned that, wanting to be a foster parent, either on a long-term or a short-term respite basis. If you have any interest or even want to inquire about what it looks like, you can give us a call anywhere across the state. The phone number you can call is 866-326-LFCS. And from there, we can direct you to who can get you, the information you're looking for. We are always in need of potential foster parents, long-term or short-term. And if you have the ability and if you want to explore that option, I'd highly encourage you, please do so. So with that, Michelle, again, thank you. I really appreciate it. And for you guys watching at home, take care of yourselves, take care of each other, and thank you for being here. Bye.